Has got to come from a violin teacher. Family holidays for the family were at Big Bay on the Manukau Harbour, where they had a thatch, and also they had many summers camping in Rotorua. Alison's first job was at Millen & Choice, a department store in Queen Street, Auckland. Apparently she had a few boyfriends, but Mum said I wasn't to mention them. She did, though, have her 21st birthday at their family home in Mount Wellington in Auckland, and there are two people here today who were there that night at her 21st birthday, and that is, of course, her sister and my mother, Valerie, and Lois Gaskin, who was here. And it was in the basement of that house a lot of table tennis was played, and their grandmother's gramophone and 78s came into good use. Now, I thought vinyls were old. Apparently 78s are older than vinyls. In January 1961, Val and Alison were in Melbourne and staying with Margaret Smith, who was an old New Zealand family friend, at her flat at Summerlin Mansion in Ackland Street, St Kilda. I drove Mum and Dad past it yesterday. They almost jumped out of the car and were going upstairs. I said, that's somebody else's house now. And on this occasion, that night in January 1961, Val and Alison met George Thorburn, the Scotsman, and George Perrott, the Irishman. And
My dad.
The story goes on from there. According to George Thorburn, George Perrott asked him to put in a good word to Alison about him. George and Alison were married in Auckland in 1963, and they lived in Te Awamutu in New Zealand for some years. Both Marshall and Lizzie were born in New Zealand, and the Perrott family moved to Melbourne in 1969. George and Val met them off the boat, the Southern Cross, and they initially stayed with George and Val in Doon Court, Briar Hill, just down the road from James and Kirby Horgan, who were in Boyce Avenue. The Perrott family then moved to the House of Rock and Roll at 54 Centre Road, Vermont, where they lived for many years. And this is where my memory cuts in. I recall lots of fun, lots of musical evenings, random gatherings, and delicious dinners. I remember in particular Uncle George's lawn mowing truck, his fingerless gloves, and my favourite, his sock of cash.
Yes. Forgot about that.
He used to carry the cash around. He used to carry around the cash in his sock. I can believe it.
I forgot all about that.
I put that sock on. And apparently the story goes he left that sock full of cash in a phone box one day and left. Went back some time later to get it. It was still there. That's probably a sign of the times. And also, who would pick up a smelly Irishman sock full of cash? And these were the years where the common family names from New Zealand moved through, like the Phillips and the Eagletons, the Horns and the Richardsons, to the Melbourne names that I'm very familiar with. The Thorburns, the Simpsons, the Drivers, the Gaskins, the Stevensons, the Randalls, the Wilsons, the Tubmans,
I saw you
the
over there
Birds,
and to the talking side.
Auntie Alison
It's a great story,
was
isn't
very good to us as a family. When our children were young, we'd go and visit her. She was always kind. And when we lived in Sydney, she'd come and visit us. She was easy to talk with. She was a wonderful cook.
Michael, good.
Extremely
Yeah,
and
good on
totally
you.
hospitable.
Good work.
And always ready for a laugh. And unfailingly kind. And in a time of sadness, it is wonderful to recall, of course, the good memories of a life well lived. And yesterday I was talking to Mum, and she told me a number of people who had phoned and acknowledged her passing in New Zealand when Mum and Dad were there. And she gave me a letter that had come from Stanley Thorburn, who was one of their cousins. And I rang Stanley last night and asked if I could read it out, and he said it was fine if I did. At the end, I've got a letter from Marshall that he'd like us to read, and I'll read that again. But this letter is from Stanley Thorburn, one of Alison and Val's cousins. Dearest Val, just a bit to add to the card. You and Alison were always special to me as my big girl cousins, and I always knew that you loved me. I remember, as you will, coming across the school grounds to get another dinner from your mother, Auntie Esme, even though I'd already had one at home. Alison was always cheering and looking for the funny side. Even as a youngster, I remember loving that about her. I know we lost touch, but when Carol brought Alison to our place when she and Rob were here, she was just the same. You will deeply miss her and those things that were unique to her character. I trust you will be comforted and be able to rejoice in her beautiful life. Much love, Stanley. So with that, and having warmed it up a little, I hope, I'm going to now call on our first drop. I said to Ken Simpson, you must remember cricket, when the first wicket falls, the next batsman comes in. So I think we have Ken Simpson to say a few words as well. Here he is.
Well, thank you, Andrew. You're a hard act to follow. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to see so many here to remember Alison and to pay their respects to her. My good friend Andrew rang me last night and said he had this proposal, and I agreed with it. So I had to get my mind spinning over a bit of history over the years as to what would be worthwhile saying about Alison and George in particular. So I made some notes. We first met Alison and George and Elizabeth and Marshall. I said around 1970. Andrew said at 69, but he'd be right. At Briar Hill, at her sister Val and husband George's residence when they came from farming in New Zealand to Melbourne. From that point, we enjoyed a close relationship that has lasted all their lives. And that's been just a blessing to us. While this is a sad occasion, we have many memories of happy smiles and laughter shared together. That was one thing about Alison. She had some grit and determination in her life, and that was necessary, particularly when George's health was failed. But she used to love a laugh. She probably helped her relax like it does for most of us. In 2004, Alison, Pauline and Rob Randall and Glenys and I flew to England to attend Marshall's wedding. We stayed in London for a few nights at the Porchester Hotel. We laughingly said that was the Dorchester for poor people. And in two hire cars we toured southern England and arrived together at Rockbear in Derbyshire, where Rachel and her parents live. At the wedding, in his speech, Marshall said, "She was the lady of my dreams." And it's very satisfying to see that relationship has worked out very well for both of them. They have 4 lovely children now, and they all sing in choirs. And music is a wonderful gift. While we were staying at Moorkline, we went on from there to Moorkline up in Scotland, where Lizzie and Jim were with their new young babe Victoria. News came that George, who was in nursing care in Melbourne, now had life-threatening issues. It was a traumatic time for Ali, sad at leaving Lizzie, anxious about the long trip home alone and how she would cope with the situation. Being a reader, she helped pass the time with a book, and after a comfort visit, was alarmed to find that she couldn't see properly out of one eye. Was it a TIA or something more serious? She told of her immense relief to later discover that one of the lens had fallen out. One Christmas holiday away, and we spent a lot of time with the parents. We set up camp with the parents at Inverloch in the Foreshore campground. All went well until the time came to prepare Christmas lunch, and that essential item, the turkey, was removed from the chilli bin. To Ali's consternation, it was covered in tiny moving spots. What to do? Well, first, conceal the problem, particularly from the children. Solution?
That's what's wrong with me.
Boil the kettle and give the bird a second scolding. The outcome? A great Christmas lunch together. Alison was very caring and kind. She loved babies and young children and did very valuable work as a foster mother. One boy I remember, and we met him today, his name, Glennis? Dak. Dak, and he may be here in the circle. Where are you, Dak? There he is over there with Lizzie. He has kept contact. He kept contact with Alison for many, many years, and I was chatting to him earlier, and I was delighted that he has a successful career in the army in Townsville. That's a wonderful outcome. Among the treasured memories are of the great suppers and sings we had at either Thorburns, Perrotts or Simpsons, with guitar, violin, piano and voices in harmony. We spent many a happy evening together, which strengthened our friendship and faith. It wasn't all serious. However, Forelli's George would sometimes disappear, only to reappear wearing a black bowler hat and some other dress-up apparel, and tell us a humorous Irish tale, and only be able to get halfway through before breaking up laughing. He was a funny man. There was always good humour and never a cross word. Many other folk, both young and old, shared in those good times, and the bonds formed are as strong and enduring, and that's a wonderful thing. We called to see Ali at Nathalia on the 14th of July, a little more than 3 weeks ago, on our way up north to see our Suzanne and family at Mullumbimby. Ali was bright and cheerful and laughed when we recalled some of the odd happenings we shared, like the Christmas turkey. I told her she looked like a mother in a photo she had in her Vermont home. I think she was pleased. We parted feeling really grateful for the visit. It was a shock to hear that so soon after she had gone to be with the Lord. Our love and sympathy goes out to all the family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Michael Gasking. Another family name that goes back a long period of time with Auntie Alison. So, Michael, come up this way.
I'm trying to bring Lois up too.
She's the star, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I won't handle that.
I'll-
Yeah, okay. Oh, good afternoon, everybody, and it's just great to be here and to try to honour a little bit of Alison. And I just like the words that when Mordecai spoke to Esther, he said, "Who knows that you have lived for such a time as this?" And I just thinking of that as we were sitting down and that. I first met Alison in New Zealand when she and George were on a farm just out of Cambridge, I think it was, in New Zealand. And George drove a VW at that time, and that was able to show us all around that area. And then the introduction was through Val and Alison's father, and that was Wald York. And he told Merv and I about this lovely girl in New Zealand that we should meet. And the rest is history, because we've been married just over 50 years, so, and that really came from that time. And George and Alison became our very good friends, and at one time they looked after our 15-month-old daughter, Stephanie, while we were in the USA. And then Merv and Liz, they looked after Lyndon. And then George's lawn mowing business grew, and their Jack Datsun 183, the mustard one, was one of their favourite cars, and Alison's fostering was really something to behold. And after we moved to Adelaide, we made a quick 6.5-hour trip back to Alison's for George and Val's farewell. And so I was just really thinking of Alison and thinking that, you know, that she was really just waiting to meet Jesus face to face. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Now, Dax, and this story goes back when you were a little boy about Auntie Alison, and would you like to?
So if I'm a bit loud, just tell me to pop down, because I'm an army fella and we do like to be loud. So my time with Ali goes right back to when I left the hospital. and Alison looked after me for the first 9 years of my life, and then found my mum for me. And once I managed to get a bit older, I pretty much continued a relationship with Alison, Lizzie and Marshall, like brother and sister to me, George, another dad, and later on in life got to meet Rob, and could sit there with Rob and Alison and just talk about Army for hours and hours on end. And I used to love listening to all my stories and everything that's going on. And although I've been working up in Townsville, all over the world, all over Australia with my current job, but I got the start from Alison, and it's led me to where I am today. Alison, George, the whole family, heart of gold. And if I don't speak to them for a year, I'm going to pick up the phone and have a chat like I only saw them yesterday. So we're really going to miss her, and yeah, share the love.
Okay, and finally, Alan Bird. Alan.
Thank you, Andrew. It's so good to see so many faces. Just a little bit of context. Our father and George were first cousins, and they were more than first cousins. They had a bond that was closer than brothers. It was forged through family tragedy and national strife. And I had memories of George for a long time, and he immigrated to Australia with us. The first time I met Alison was, I'm not sure whether it was that night that was described in 1961, but it was very close, because I was about the age of 12 or 13, I think. You know, that time when you're moving from being a boy to being a man, or you thought you were, you know, from short pants to long pants, I'm not sure. But down in that flat in St Kilda, there was something happening. There was these two blokes from the Northern Hemisphere and these two girls from New Zealand, and someone had made the situation occur, and as we heard, the rest is history. As we heard, George and Alison lived the first part of their lives together with Marshall and Liz in New Zealand, and then times were pretty tough, and they came to Australia, and they were very much part of our lives. Two beautiful kids, full of life, absolutely unpredictable. I mean, Marshall and Liz would come with their mum and dad to our place, and it was not uncommon to find Marshall on the roof of our house. Now, in spite of that, there was so much more love to flow from that beautiful woman's heart. She took so many children under her wing that didn't have a parent and needed love. And it's just so beautiful to see a young man like Dax standing here, because he stole my story. What better way to steal the story than see it in person? And I may not have this story right, Dax, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that the doctors said you had a particular problem. It was a diagnosis.
His reflexes didn't work.
Reflexes didn't work. That was down in the end. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, Alison wouldn't rest. She did not rest until she took Dax to, I think it was an osteopath or a chiropractor, who said, this is very simple, a simple adjustment. Took him back to the doctors, and the doctors said, what has happened to this child? He's a different person, and we see him here today. Just a beautiful example of the love that was in Alison's heart. And there were many other children that she did, that shared their lives with Marshall and Elizabeth. Thank you for doing that, Liz. Another story that, excuse me, try and get through this. Another story that I think epitomises Alison's, the love in Alison's heart. We had a young man who came to live with us, with Beatrice and I. Amelia, our daughter, is Amelia still here? She was only a little thing. We were struggling as new parents, dealing with social pressures. We didn't have any experience, and this young man came to live with us, and he was doing year 12. And it was a pretty tough time for him in many ways too. He was asking a lot of questions about life, and he would have said, you know, he was a bit of a rebel. But as we were often prone to do, like a lot of folks here, we'd end up at 54 Centre Road on a Friday evening. Sometimes we'd say to him, do you want to come? He said, yeah, I'll come. And it would be a few years ago, which is nearly 40 years ago, he and I were reflecting. And he said, Alan, he said, when I lived with you and Beatrice, there is one thing that stands out to me, and that is when you went to George and Alison's and you brought me with you, he said there was something in that home that I cannot explain. He said the people there was a love between people that was, on one hand, seemed so ordinary, but he said it was something that has made an indelible imprint on my heart and life. And actually, he said it has shaped many of the decisions in that part of his life. And to me, I think that just explains the heart of Alison, and George, and Lizzie, and Marshall. First day before Alison passed on, Beatrice said to me, she said, Alan, I think we should go and see Alison, or we may not see her. You know that little voice that says to you, you should do something? We all know it. We all know it. And times when we follow it, things happen that are quite amazing sometimes. When we don't, things turn to custard often. So yes, we got in the car and off we went.